San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel has requested trades. This is going to be our first live show since that has occurred. And we're also going to talk about potential spots for him we think might make sense. Really kind of discuss the value of Deebo. Does Deebo even have any value currently to any team? I don't know. Talk about that. We'll react to the Eagles beating the Chiefs, slaying the dragon, getting it done. Do we like it? Do we not like it? We'll talk about all those things. Mic problems. Is my mic working? Check, check. 1, 2. Let I need my producers to tap in the chat. Let me know if I'm having mic issues, and we'll get to it on the other side. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, we are back. Hopefully, it doesn't keep chopping up. We went from McDonald's Wi-Fi at Super Bowl. Now, first live back. Sounds like our mic is already having issues. I'm choppy. Ugh. Come on. Don't mess with me. I need my producers in the chat to lock in. All right. Well, hopefully it's not too crazy. So I'll get going for a little bit, and we'll figure it out as we keep going. But before we get into the Deebo Samuel trade conversation, because I do have some thoughts and some potential places that he could go, let's talk about the Super Bowl. I did a video right after, but we didn't do a live reaction. So I'm kind of curious. Let's start off with how you guys are feeling. I know people were, you know, a lot of people, especially 49er fans, had no interest in the Super Bowl. But I don't know, man. I was sitting there, I was watching the Super Bowl play out, and I found myself thoroughly enjoying what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing. I've talked about the Philadelphia Eagles in the obviously we had that whole spat back and forth that actually originated here on this channel with the interview that I did with Brandon Ayuk. What Ayuk had to say about the Eagles after the 49ers got knocked out of the NFC Championship game, after Brock had the UCL injury and all that stuff. Those comments back to Eagles players at the Super Bowl, and then that whole kind of back and forth kept kind of going. So that actually started here, right here on this channel. And honestly, when the 49ers kind of dismantled them, I was less I really wasn't that concerned about the Eagles after that. So I don't really understand. All right, my mic is cutting out. The mic is cutting out. The mic is cutting out. Can you hear my beautiful singing? Why is my mic cutting out? He said, "Mike is having a Mahomes Super Bowl game." 100%. We're rattled. We're rattled right now. Pocket is collapsing all around us. Come on. Alright. Just, hey, keep me up to speed in the chat. I'll keep messing with it. I just unplugged it and replugged it in. Keep me up to speed in the chat. We'll keep going. But honestly, the whole situation, with the Eagles, I don't really care for the Eagles in the sense of, like, they are heated rivals to the 49ers. I think we had a fun little moment where it was like we really wanted to be able to have that game replayed. 49ers smacked them, and after that, I was like, "Alright, whatever. I don't really care about the Eagles." So, I know that the Eagles have one of the worst fan bases in the NFL, so I don't care for them. But in the Eagles themselves, really just indifferent on them, at least compared to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, honestly, I was watching that game and I was enjoying it. I really was. Um, I thought what the Eagles did to the Kansas City Chiefs was honestly surprising. I really wasn't expecting pure domination like that. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from that game was how they did it with the trenches. And you honestly, when you go back to the last time that Patrick Mahomes lost in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady, one of the reasons why that they lost was because that Buccaneers defensive line just got after Mahomes consistently. And I know this isn't breaking news to anyone. I think we all understand that this game is won in the trenches. If you guys tap into any of my, like, pre-game, like, previews or, like, I would say, like, 90% of the time, I'm previewing the matchup in the trenches as being the biggest determination of who wins the game. So, I'm not breaking any news to anyone when I say games are won and lost in the trenches. And in the Super Bowl in the biggest moments, yes, you wanna have the, rocket arm quarterback, and you want to have the guy who can do it with his legs. At the end of the day, I think it's more fundamental than that. I really do think it comes down to, situation in the trenches. Can you block? Can you protect? Get after the quarterback? And it's really what it comes down to. So, with the San Francisco 49ers, we understand that this is what they have to do, and you have to tip your cap to Howie Roseman, who has been a absolutely phenomenal general manager. He has been so damn good. Like, I that's one thing that I have a hard time with is, like, how does Howie keep getting away with this? How does he trade for AJ Brown? How does he draft the guys that he's drafted? I'm just like, "Holy crap, man." Like, if you look at Howie Roseman's first 3 rounds of the last, like, 3 to 4 years, it's been it's been remarkable how well he has drafted, and you're seeing it right now. You're seeing his been able to construct. He's got dogs all over the place, and obviously, the 49ers haven't had the same level of success in those ranges or in those ranks. They just really haven't. They have been kind of the inverse of that. They have found success in later rounds. They have found immense value in later rounds. It's been a really interesting thing to see, right? Because we've got all pros, the future Hall of Famers around like 3 and beyond. But when it comes to like the first when it comes to like the first and second round, it's really it just hasn't been, I think, the level of success of where it it needs to be. Now, it doesn't mean they haven't had success. They've drafted Brandon Ayuk, but Deebo Samuel and, um, who else? Bosa. We know who they've drafted early on, but we also know who they've missed. Hold on. Did anyone catch that? He said "What in the gang signs?" I'm signing. I don't know, man. I tried to replug and, put in my I hear you. Hopefully, you can hear me. Again, we'll keep working through it. It is what it is. All goes down and down the drain, I'm just gonna start sign language, so get ready for it. Alright. So, I think what I was talking about was O-line, D-line, um, things like that, uh, and that just really being the biggest takeaway, right? Because Patrick Mahomes still had his weapons. I thought Xavier Worthy was solid, um, but it was just a little too late, and, not scoring any points in the first half of the Super Bowl was crazy. So, um, yeah, just unfortunate situation for the Chiefs, but I think, I'm curious. I walked away feeling cleansed. I think that last year was just felt like a cloud kinda followed the 49ers, kinda felt like it followed me. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, being at the Super Bowl and watching Brock Purdy walk off the field with the lead and then watch Patrick Mahomes go all the way down and win at the end, and that was tough. That was really tough to see. Then going into the press room to interview Chris McCaffrey, Fred Warner, George Kittle, just seeing their faces, just seeing how distraught they were. That was a really hard it was really difficult, and I think it was difficult for everyone involved. I think it really just stuck with everyone because that was a game that I think they should have won and should have had. It is what it is. I think we move on. We move on and there. Apparently, my mic keeps cutting out. They don't wanna see us thrive. That's what's happening. So I think for me, um, I don't know why my mic. All right, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I don't know if this is gonna do anything, but I'm gonna try. So, fixed. I don't know why that's happening, but do my best. Right now, it's not saying that my internet is the problem, but hey, we'll see. I appreciate everyone bearing with me on this one. First, first stream back in the studio for 2 weeks. Went from Mobile straight to New Orleans. Now we're back. Not surprised that we're getting back into the mix. Um, my AirPods aren't on, so that shouldn't be it either. But appreciate everyone for holding on. Hopefully, we'll get this ironed out. Let me double check. Yeah, my AirPods aren't even on. Whatever. We're gonna keep rolling. We got a couple super chats. Um, let's get into it. And some super chats. Calvin Ridley to the Niners. I don't love it, to be honest. Um, mm, what is it? Calvin Ridley? He got paid by the Tennessee Titans. He's up there in age. I think I would pass on that. I would. I'm I think if there's anything that we've seen with the 49ers, trying, to get guys, they got not that this is going to be the same for everyone, but Javon Hargrave signed him to a big time contract, in his 30s. I just think that if you're trying to make an addition, you gotta get someone who's, I would say, ages 25 and 28. That to me feels like the sweet spot. Um, and just Calvin Ridley, I've never been, like, a huge fan of his game, and especially with where he's at in his career, I would have to pass on that, but there are definitely potential other wide receivers that are veterans that could be solid. I just don't see Calvin Ridley necessarily being a, fit for that. Mumbo says, "Is there any 1 year or less 49ers you'd recommend fondly?" I like Chris Borland, Glenn Coffey, Emmanuel Sanders. 1 year 49ers. I mean, 1 year 49ers. So only played with the 49ers for 1 season? I mean, Emmanuel Sanders was great because he came in and he really changed the culture of the wide receiver room in a hurry. Um, and it wasn't a full year, it was half a season. And that was Deebo's rookie year. I would say Emmanuel Sanders might be the most impactful. Alfred Morris. What about, Braylon Edwards or Mario Manningham? You guys remember those guys as 1 year 49ers? I'm trying to think of what other hired mercenaries that we had that only came in for once, uh, and I'm joking, by the way. Um, I actually thought for I got myself hyped up on the Braylon Edwards also. Ooh, this might be good for us. Abs Absolutely nothing. Um, Stevie Johnson. I actually interviewed Stevie Johnson, this last week on Radio Row. He was one of my favorite conversations. We just geeked out on route running. Um, we traded for him in, I think, the 2014 season. Um, great person now. I loved interviewing him. He was awesome. Oh, I forgot about that. Nnamdi Asomugha. Oh, I forgot about that. Brandon Jacobs. That Oh my gosh, these names all flying back. Forgot about that. Deion Sanders, oh, you wanna talk about impactful one-year players, the 49ers? Um, I think he might take that, but I like that question. Got me thinking a little bit about some of the no, we're not skipping Randy. I'm not skipping Randy. Always good to have 84. It's cool to have him, especially on the run that we made. It would've been better if we ended it with a Super Bowl. Brandon Lloyd. Lloyd was great. Underrated wide receiver, if you ask me. Alright, let's talk a little bit about Deebo Samuel, right? So, the big news was, I think are we surprised that on Super Bowl Sunday, Deebo Samuel inserted him into the headlines that he is requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, the morning of, and to be honest, not surprised in the slightest. At least, Deebo broke the news himself and his brother in my Facebook comments like we did the last time. I don't know if any of you guys were here for that stream when we broke the Deebo Samuel trade news while on live, um, because brother was talking mess, to a bunch of, fans in my Facebook comment section. One of the guys in the chat was like, "Hey, did you see this, Mike, again?" So was it good? Was my mic quality good, and then it all of a sudden just decided it was time to go for a snorkel trip to the hell, man? Why is my mic tripping? Is this any better? My goodness. Hopefully hopefully I don't sound like I'm in the Bikini Bottom anymore, but keep it there for a little while, and then, I don't know, it just keeps diving on me. It's like, we're gonna go visit SpongeBob here. I don't know why it keeps doing that. But what were we talking about? We're talking about Deebo Samuel, um, alerting his trade, uh, request on the day of the Super Bowl. Um, oh, let's go. We got past 150. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. So, just know that Deebo Samuel requesting a trade or that information coming out on the morning of the Super Bowl that was planned. That they sat on a call. They talked about, "Hey, when are we gonna leak this information? When do we want this to come out? Let oh, how about the Super Bowl? How about the last, big day of, the football calendar before we officially head into the NFL offseason? How about that day?" So that was planned. That was you want to talk about controlling the narrative? That's what that was. So Deebo Samuel, decided he wanted to control the narrative this time and not his brother in my Facebook comments. So He requested trade, and it comes out that he actually requested the trade in the exit interview, with the 49ers. And, you know, n am I surprised by this? Is this a shocking revelation? Absolutely not. You guys have been following along, with the channel. You've known I've been talking about this was probably gonna be Deebo Samuel's last year, or at least that was my idea. I'm not saying my idea, I'm saying my thought process is that Deebo Samuel didn't have any guaranteed money on his contract after this year, and we know what happens when players reach that point. It's time for an extension or it's time for a move. And so I was under the impression that Deebo Samuel was not going to get an extension with the San Francisco 49ers, and that became clear when they paid Brandon Ayuk what they paid him. So, just in my and then they go and draft Ricky Pearsall. So the writing on the wall, like, I don't think anyone should have been surprised by this. Um, you may be surprised with how it was executed, maybe how it went down, but I'm not surprised in the slightest. I'm actually happy that Deebo Samuel, requested the trade, because we don't have to guess anymore. It makes my job easier as someone who tries to project future free agent moves, drafts, we do mocks and all, so it helps to kind of understand where the roster is headed, and it's gonna be headed without Deebo. And to be perfectly honest, I love Deebo. Deebo, single-handedly took the 49ers offense to nearly to the Super Bowl in 2021 as he was the OG, wide back, and, he was a draft crush of mine, um, someone that I banged the table for the 49ers to draft. So I've been rocking with Deebo for a long time, and, so I got a lot of respect for what he's done, but if we're gonna have an honest conversation, it hasn't been Deebo since 2021. We've seen glimpses of that Deebo. We've seen with each and every year that has passed, it has diminished and diminished and diminished. Um, Deebo Samuel's problem ha ha Deebo Samuel's problem was never, talent. It was consistency that I measure, greatness in league, and I think a lot of people do, is consistency. And Deebo, as he was consistently great in 2020. In 2022, he was about 3 quarters pretty great, and then there's about 25% of those games was kinda just average, and then the following year, it went to, like, 50%. Half the time, he was the old Deebo, and then in his last season, he just fell off. I don't know what happened. The only time we saw Deebo being Deebo was in a game that didn't matter. It was against the Miami Dolphins. That was the only time we saw Deebo like, "Oh, there's Deebo. I'm glad Deebo showed up." Um, what what week was that? What week was that? That was, like, week 16. Deebo Samuel showed up at week 16, like, "Oh, I'm ready." It's like, "Damn, Deebo." I was like, after we needed you in your not getting enough targets game against the Rams, keep us alive for the playoffs, sold that game, and then you have the biggest game of your year, week 16. So again, I think it was best for both parties. I'm glad that he requested the trade. I'm glad that we don't have to like kind of dance around the topic because John Lynch said that, we expect Deebo Samuel here to be here next year. After John Lynch had said that, is like, what else do you expect him to say? They're always going to talk about players under contract the same way, especially heading into contract negotiations or potentially heading into trades. They're never going to reveal their hand or their or what's really happening because that would be silly to do so. So that's why, we always talk about whenever we have these exit interviews or they're talking about the future of certain players, we're always just like, "Okay, that sounds great, but I'll believe it when I see it." And I think we said, "I'll believe that Deebo Samuel is going to be on this roster after the draft." Until then, I think anything will happen, and I do believe that he will potentially be moved. So, I said that directly after, the press conference, the exit interview. I said, "Wait till the draft. If he's here after the draft, then okay, he's here." Uh, but I think it's abundantly clear that we are going to see the 49ers and Deebo Samuel part ways. And so I think then the question becomes, can we get anything for Deebo Samuel? Because I believe that him doing what he did and announcing his trade, and clearly, like I said, it was a coordinated, uh, release, and he clearly was, sharing it with his retweets and to his stories because that he wants people to know. And the reason why he wants people to know is because I do believe he understands that by him publicly asking for a trade and basically saying, "I'm not returning to the 49ers," it lowers his value. His value was already extremely low, but the fact that I do think that he opened it up and he let everyone know, it takes away any leverage that the 49ers could potentially have in a negotiation. That's why I think, John Lynch said what he said. I think that's why he said that, "We expect him to be here. We're not in the business of letting good players go." Exactly. You shouldn't. You shouldn't be in that business. You should be trying to get max value. And so by Debo outing the trade request, I think it actually hurts his value because you already have to take on this contract, which is, an element, but then a team has to give potential draft pick considerations. Honestly, I would say Debo right now, what what is he worth? Uh, Debo, thinking the Hulu. Let me double check. I was thinking that Debo might be. Uh, I don't think the 49ers are getting a day two pick for Debo. I don't. I think that would be best case scenario. Best case scenario, they get a day two pick. I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah, my mic is jacked up. I don't know why. Trying to figure it out. Let me kill some of these tabs. I thought I might have Hulu up as well. No Hulu. So hopefully it levels out. We'll see. Again, I apologize for the crappy audio. But when it comes to what is he worth, we would be lucky to get a day 2 pick, um, because of his age, his recent production, and his contract. So, as a result of that, I think I think we would be maybe a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick. I've seen a lot of people being like, "Oh, we should trade Debo for this really good player," and I'm just like, "Man, I don't see that." He's often injured, uh, effort issues all across his tape. Um, if he doesn't have the ball, he's not a player who who plays well without the ball in his hands. Like one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings is because when they don't have the ball, they are doing the most. Their energy is all the way up. They're blocking their tails off. They're doing whatever they can to help the team. When Deebo Samuel doesn't have the ball, and it has fluctuated, he's had moments where it feels like you can see him start to try to block more, and he's had moments where that has happened. But I would say from the majority of it, he typically doesn't play with that same level of effort without the ball in his hands that he does with the ball in his hands. And that's always been one of my biggest nitpicks of him is just because I put such a huge emphasis on blocking, especially for wide receivers. And as you've all seen, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings are at the top of the list of high effort players when the ball isn't in their hands. And so, I don't know. I don't know how anyone can watch the tape from last year or even the year prior and be like, yeah, let's give a third round pick for this guy. Maybe I could be completely wrong. I talked to a few, I was already having these conversations with a couple people that, I think are plugged in around the Super Bowl. And I think the sentiment around the league, at least around people that I think are like in the know, just don't think he has it anymore. And so I don't know what that would look like, um, what that trade would look like. I don't think it would be fireworks. I don't think it would be really anything where the 49ers are getting a huge return on Deebo Samuel. I mean, even when Deebo Samuel was coming off his prime year, the 49ers couldn't really even get that much for him if you really think about it. So, in his prime, 49ers couldn't get a deal that made sense to them. So, Deebo now, yeah, he's 29 years old. Um, he's on the wrong side of his career. So, I just don't know. I don't know what the 49ers can get for him. Uh Come on Friday says Debo to Carolina, a fourth, fifth, and Tremble. Um if you could get a fourth round pick and a fifth round pick for Debo and a player like Tommy Tremble, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I do think that's kind of about the package that Debo would probably fetch right now because of all the things that we just talked about. You contract, age, tape, the trifecta. Just it's not the best situation. It's a hard sell because if you're John Lynch, that's a hard sell right now with Deebo Samuel. So this might kind of be in the range of what you're getting in return. I don't even know I don't even know. I've seen people talk about the doing a straight up for Cooper Cup. Um, Rams, uh, Cooper Cup for Deebo. I don't know about that. I don't know if the Rams would do that. They might. They could. Tommy says 8th round pick for Deebo. 8th round pick for Deebo. And to be honest, I think this could absolutely be. I think this is one of the highest ranges of outcomes. And again, it was kind of back to my original point of why Deebo announced the trade, is because I think this is what Deebo wants. I think Deebo wants to get cut so that he can pick his destination. When you look at Eric Armstead, what happened with Eric Armstead? He asked for his release. They came to him to take a massive pay cut. He said, "Get me out of here." They hit him with a post June 1 designation to make sure his cap hit was dropped significantly. And what did Eric do? He went out and signed a massive contract with the Jaguars. That's what Deebo is thinking. Deebo's like, I don't want to get traded. I want to get cut. That's what Deebo wants. Deebo wants the 49ers to get no value for him. He wants them to release his rights outright, and so he can go and negotiate a new deal freely, and that's how you potentially generate a bidding war to be able to get the money up, and then he can pick where he wants to play. So that's where Deebo, I think, is angling, and that's why I think he announced his trade on Super Bowl Sunday, and he put it out there, and he's at the Super Bowl Radio Row talking about all these other teams that he wants to play for, like the Denver Broncos. He just wants out. He's done with the 49ers. He wants his walking papers so he can go sign elsewhere. And to be honest, the 49ers, I don't think they're gonna do that. Because let's take a trip in the Wayback Machine, right? Let's think about that time where we thought that the Jimmy Garoppolo era had come to an end. Remember that? Oh, there's no way Jimmy Garoppolo is going to return to the San Francisco 49ers. There's no way. Sure about that? Why didn't he get moved? Why didn't Jimmy Garoppolo end up elsewhere? Why did he stay on the team? Because the 49ers weren't going to let Jimmy Garoppolo go for nothing. So that is what I think we're headed for with Deebo. Deebo wants to get cut, and the 49ers are like, you're tripping. We're not going to cut you because we've already paid you. You're on the books, and we're not just gonna let you go sign wherever you want. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna try to get as much value as possible. And that's why I'm sitting here assuming that the 49ers like, come on, Deebo. why'd you announce that? Because you just lowered your value. You just made it harder for us to trade you, which is what I think he wants. He wants to get cut. So that's where I think we're at. If that makes sense. That's my rationale. Is Deebo requested his trade publicly because he wants to get cut, and the timing, very important, very intentional. And the 49ers are going to say, you're tripping, dude. We'll get you somewhere, but we're picking the team that you're going to, and we better get value for you in return because this is a business and that's how it works. And So that's the battle now. Debo's going to try to somehow get his way out of this contract, and the 49ers are going to say, what the 49ers should say to Deebo is, remember what happened to Jimmy Garoppolo? Remember Jimmy on the side field at training camp? That could be you, pal. So just be careful because you're under contract and we own the rights to your contract, and we're just not going to let you go for because oh sure, you want to go sign with the Seahawks, go for it. Go for it. That's fine. We have no problems with that. I thought when I was talking to Mike Florio, he was like, "Oh, the Seahawks are a name to kind of keep your eye on for Deebo Samuel." I was like, "The Seahawks?" He's like, "Yeah, the Seahawks." I was like, "No." Another reason why the 49ers wouldn't just outright cut Deebo. So, but like I said, the writing was on the wall. You could see this coming from a mile away, and I'm glad. I'm glad that it's out there for the simple sense of we just know. Like we know what it is. You don't have to guess. We don't have to, we know. Debo's not going to be here. And if he is going to be here, it's going to be on that side field until the 49ers get something for him. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. Bozzy says, you think a weakness of Shanahan's own scheme is that it selects a lighter O line. Can we have an elite pass blocking O line with those limitations? I think this is a great question because it hits home for me personally. I was an undersized offensive lineman. I was starting um at center at one point at 6'3", 250 pounds. So I relished being an undersized offensive lineman because I was lighter and I was faster. That was my whole thing. First step get off, I was very fast. I was very fast for an offensive lineman, believe it or not. And that was my whole thing was speed, technique. Um I don't think going lighter offensive line is necessarily a huge issue because with the right technique and the right leverage, you like Filthy says, did you ever get bull rush? Of course you get bull rush, but everyone gets bull rushed. It's all about being able to maintain the proper leverage. And that's why there's like a 5'11 center at the Senior Bowl having had a really great Senior Bowl as a 5'11 center or 5'11, 5'10. Was it Willie Lampkins out of North Dakota, or not North Dakota, North Carolina? He's 5'11, and he played pretty damn well, all things considered. So yeah, Willie Lampkin out of North Carolina is like 5'10, 5'11. So I don't think that's necessarily uh, a main reason why someone can't pass protect. Because my counter to that is if you're 6'6", 340 pounds, you don't move well. Or it's very rare to find that guy who moves really well. So I'm looking for an in-between. I'm looking for a bigger guy who moves like a zone offensive lineman, aka that's why Dominic Pooney fits what what we do so well because he is every bit of 6'6", but like he moves like he's much smaller. So I just think that one of the things that the 49ers have done, and when you look at guys like Mike McGlinchey or Colton McKivitz, they're run first offensive linemen. I think it's less about zone and scheme, and I think it's more about their traits. It's more about their pass protection technique. Because if you have good pass protection technique and you have good processing and you're smaller but faster, you can absolutely neutralize bigger defensive tackles. I've always talked about it. I would personally prefer to go up against a 6'6", 320-pound, 330-pound defensive tackle opposed to a 6'1", 295, because the 6'1", 295 are typically fast as crap. First step explosion is insane, and their leverage. They've already won pad level, and so um, I don't think the lighter thing is necessarily the issue. It's more about getting guys that are adequate pass blockers in college. Because the biggest thing that I think I've learned is that it's really hard for offensive linemen to develop in the NFL. So you kind of have, and I love what the 49ers did with Pooney. They identified someone who's played a lot of football, who was solid, very solid in pass protection, but didn't have, in my opinion, a pass blocking skill set for tackle. So that's why they kicked him inside, and he's perfect on the inside. Um, so to me, it's less about size; it's more about technique. I still prefer faster, more athletic offensive linemen, but you can't be just I'm bigger than you and I'm going to push you over. Technique is huge. Technique is really, really big thing for offensive linemen. Is one of the reasons why I was skeptical of the Spencer Burford pick when it was made. Not because of um, his measurables, uh, his speed, or anything like that. It was because he was very technically raw. And that was the draft where I wanted the 49ers to draft Zach Tom in that spot, and they took Burford. And I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know about this pick, because back to that conversation, it was like he had the size. He's strong as crap. He had prototypical size for a guard, but I was like, I don't see the technique. I don't see the small fine details that you need in the NFL, and that means he has to learn those in the NFL, and that is a challenge. That is the question mark of, is that guy going to pick up that technique, or is it going to be kind of a situation where I think Spencer Burford is still struggling with the technique. He's still struggling with the small, finer details of playing offensive line, which is why he isn't starting anymore. So that's why I liked Zach Tom, who was a lighter, smaller offensive lineman, but he was technically advanced. And that's why I think he was voted an all pro. Like, PFF put him as like the number one right tackle on their rankings. Um, and so you can kind of see the disparity of what that's the perfect comparison for this. Is the counterpoint is Zach Tom, Spencer Burford. Zach Tom has started like 35 games. He's becoming one of the best offensive linemen in the league, but he's smaller and he's lighter. Whereas Spencer Burford, who was selected before Zach Tom, was prototypical size, prototypical strength. He moved well. I wouldn't say he moved well, but he didn't move well. But he didn't have the technical refinement. And so that's really the key, in my opinion, for being able to identify good offensive linemen, is technical refinement. Size helps, but technical refinement is number one in my book. And that's why you guys will always see, like, remember Troy Fautanu? Crazy about Troy Fautanu. He was smaller, he was lighter, but his technique was crazy, and he was a great athlete. Didn't care about the size, didn't care about the short arms, didn't care about none of that because he had the base, the feet, all of those things that I think matter most when it comes to evaluating offensive line. But that's me personally. Sorry, I could talk about that topic all day. But that was a great question, by the way, Bozzy. For sure. I'm again, to me, being lighter doesn't matter as long as you're technically advanced. If you're not technically advanced, it's a completely different situation. Oh, I miss you, Potty, all the time. He was my first ever offensive line draft crush. I've been missing you. I've been missing you. I mean, this guy, I was so upset that we didn't resign him. Another reason why I can't stand Trent Baalke. I bought his jersey as a rookie. I got his jersey. His jersey's hanging up on the wall right here. You got a Mikey Potty jersey right there. It's right off. It's right off frame. I've got the Keenan Allen jersey, and then right next to it is my Mikey Potty jersey that I bought right after the draft because he was my first offensive lineman draft crush, and we drafted him. You know, shout out to the 49ers drafting my early draft crushes because I think it's why I still love the draft as much as I do. Because the first time I got into it, they drafted the guys that I liked. And I was like, this is electric. It's gonna be like this every year. No, it's not. It's not, but um still a lot of fun. Still a lot of fun. Any O-line draft crushes this year? Yeah, there's a couple guys. I've been really firm on Will Campbell being the number one offensive lineman, and I feel like at least so far when it comes to draft pundits, um, for whatever reason, when I started talking about Campbell, I think Kelvin Banks was considered like the best offensive line in this class by the majority. I don't know for what reason why. Um, so and no one was really talking about Will Campbell at all. And so when I did my deep dive on Kelvin Banks, I was like, yeah, I don't see it with Banks from a tackle perspective. To me, he looks like a guard. And then I got into Will Campbell, and he stood out like definitely as the best tackle in this class. And it seems like all the other O line guys have agreed as well. Someone who stands out to me, I really like Gray Zabel, the two small school kids from uh, the Senior Bowl, North Dakota State. He was probably the best offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl. I really like Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. Two LSU guys stood out to me, Miles Frazier and Emory Jones. I thought were pretty solid. I think Anthony Belton is a guy that popped up on my radar, having a really good week. Marcus Embo out of Purdue is an interesting prospect, most likely going to be a guard center. Irsuri out of Minnesota showed some promise. So there's a couple guys. But I would say draft crush wise, I think it's hard not to think that Gray Zabel is not going to be a big hit. Do I think we address online early or late in the draft? Honestly, I think it's going to be a similar situation to what we did last year. I think you got to go. Well, this is the interesting element. Does wide receiver in the first round become a potential? Uh, Burden, McMillan. I don't know if McMillan slides out of the top 10. Burden probably does. But does wide receiver potentially become an option early? This isn't a particularly, I would say, like super deep wide receiver class. There's some guys that I think balled out that could definitely be contributors. Jalen Royals out of Utah State, Jack Beck out of TCU. Um, Jaden Higgins, Iowa State, kind of has that uh, Jawan Jennings 2.0. Jalen Noel out of Iowa State as well. He was a baller. So it'll be interesting to see what the 49ers do if they potentially go wide receiver early. I think the only way they go wide receiver is if McMillan falls to 11. I mess with Nick Nash for sure. I mess with Nick Nash out of SJSU. He was like the college triple crown winner last year. All he did was produce and at an extremely high level. Um, but I do think the only way we go O line early is if one or two prospects are there. Other than that, I think you have to go BPA. I think you have to go BPA, and I think BPA will show itself that a defensive lineman will be available. But again, we still got free agency and potential trades to be made. So I don't know. What I'm really excited about with this draft is there's a lot of ways the 49ers could go. They could go defensive line. They could go offensive line. They could go wide receiver. They could go safety. They could go linebacker. They could trade pick 11. Um, I would probably trade pick 11. I kind of like the idea. I know Miles Garrett could potentially be an option at for pick 11. I also wouldn't mind Max Crosby for pick 11. I just kind of get the feeling that Max Crosby might be made available at the right price. And if the 49ers could get their hands on him for maybe even a little bit less than what Miles Garrett fetches, I would make that move, right? Like kind of think of it like DeForest Buckner and that whole situation over again. Um, because the 49ers would have to extend him, so that kind of lowers his value a little bit. And um you might be able to do Max Crosby for pick 11 straight up. Paul says, "Hey, bro, you got a reaction out of Crosby." Hey, he was cheesing when I brought that up. He got a big ass smile. He said, threw his head back. He's like, "Oh man, no reaction." I was like, all right." But you gave me you gave me enough of a reaction. I think you liked it. Oh man. But I do think Max Crosby could absolutely be an option again. But I think because he has to get paid, it makes the cost to obtain him less. So I think that could be an interesting one for sure. So, but 49ers should be picking up the phone. Anyone selling elite edge rushers? Anyone? Anyone selling edge? Who's got an edge for me? Get an edge and then figure out how to get two defensive tackles out of it as well. And the 49ers are back for sure. If the 49ers can rebuild their defensive line, honestly, I would also be willing to trade Leonard Floyd. So if we're really talking about potential trade ideas for a top edge, like I would trade Leonard Floyd um back to a team if they ask for it. If we went for one of the elite edge guys that are available, I would absolutely consider that. If they ask for Leonard Floyd and maybe a second, maybe that's a way that the 49ers could keep their first is we get Max Crosby, we send you Leonard Floyd and a second round pick 43, and then you get Max Crosby, you draft Walter Nolan, and just like that, your defensive line is completely different and upgraded. And then you could even go back to the well uh, at defensive tackle in the third round if you wanted to with interior, or you can grab a guy like a DJ Jones type in mid rounds, fifth or beyond. And I think you could find some because this D line class is so stacked. I do think that is potentially an option. Khalil Mack would be a cheaper option, but he reminds me of Leonard Floyd. So I like Khalil Mack. I like the idea. I like Joey Bosa, but they kind of remind me of Leonard Floyd. Guys that aren't washed, like I'm not saying Leonard Floyd's washed, but they're not necessarily in their prime. They're on the back nine. And I don't really want a player like that. To just to be perfectly honest, I think they tried that with Leonard, and I think Leonard was all right. Um, but I think they need to ever since I've been pounding the table for Brian Burns, they need someone young. They need someone who still has their best ball in front of them, and that's when you make that move. Otherwise, you just go to the draft and you try to find that guy in the draft. Um, but if you, my anticipation is that the 49ers want someone who's going to be impactful now, not someone who's going to be potentially impactful next year as a rookie. I think they want someone who can compete right away and instantly impact the organization. So I think they'll be active. I do. I do think that they'll be able to find cap space by either restructuring or extending multiple players. So I think the window for adding some big time players is open. The potential of T Higgins, I don't know if my opinion changes much with T because as I've stated many times, T Higgins is one of my favorite wide receivers in the league. Um, he is a great wide receiver, which is why I think he will command 30 million plus. I don't think the 49ers, I don't think it makes sense. The 49ers, who they want to be a run first team. They want to run the football 30 times. I don't think that identity is going to change. It has changed recently, and they kind of have been trying to push the ball downfield more. But I think what they really want to do is run the football. And I don't think having two $30 million per year wide receivers in a system that isn't designed to just throw a million times a year, like I would not put my um my the big free agent chunk of cash into a wide receiver. I would put it into a defensive end. I would put it into a defensive tackle. I would put it into a center. I would not put that into a wide receiver. Like you said, I would much rather get a more cost effective Tay Adams and go spend big on center. Go get me Drew Dolman for maybe 20 million a year. Save me 30, take that 10 that's left over, go get me Devontae. Instead of getting T, and you can get me Dolman and Devontae Adams for the same price, I would much rather do that. Much, much, much rather do that than get a guy who I love T. I freaking loved T, but it doesn't make sense to me from a business perspective. It doesn't make sense to me to have two $30 million a year wide receivers, and he's going to get every bit of that 30 million. I think, I really do. 28 to 30 is. Oh, that one snuck up on me. Woo! That's what I'm saying. Use the money to get a center. If you can, I don't know if I want to trade Devontae because I don't really want his contract. So I'd kind of wait. I mean, you could swap. I'd be interested in that. You could swap the contracts, but I think ideally you get Devontae without his contract and you sign him to a 1 year, maybe 2 year. And I would prefer to get out of the contract. Let me see what his contract's looking like. Um, Devontae Adams. He has 2 years remaining. Whoo! Ooh! Ooh! Bro, his cap hit the next 2 seasons is $38 million. 38 million. Nah, I don't want this contract. So, in theory, I like the idea for Deebo of Devontae straight up. I don't want that contract. I don't think any team's going to want that contract. And the Jets, if they were to cut him, they would only have a $8 million dead cap hit if they released him pre-June 1st. If they release him post June 1st, it's only a $2 million cap hit and they save $36 million against the cap. So I would have to say Devontae Adams is going to be a post June 1st cut. And so you don't trade for that unless, yeah, I don't think you trade for that. You He's going to get released as a post June 1st designation, and then you pick him up. Let's see. Man, 49ers are screwed on Deebo's contract no matter what. They're definitely not going to cut him. Gosh, that looks. The only way it would happen. The only way Deebo's moving if it's a post post June 1st trade. And even still, they take on a $10 million cap hit in 2025 and a $20 million cap hit in 2026. Furthering my point that the 49ers aren't going to release Deebo Samuel, which I think is what Deebo wants. They're not going to do that. To take on that much dead cap space, they're going to get a pick in return, or they're going to say, side field for you, pal. You're going to go with Jimmy G on the side field if we can't trade you, because that's crazy. Man, that's brutal. That's brutal. So it's yeah, those cap hits are substantial. And then but they can void it out in 2026. So I think that's where the 49ers leverage is in this situation, is the fact that they carry such a significant cap situation with Deebo, is that they're not going to let Deebo go for nothing. Like, for them to take that on, we're going to get something in return for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at it. So yeah, that's ugly though. That's an ugly situation. Whew. If they don't designate him as a post June 1 trade or release, they're taking on a $31 million cap hit and negative $15 million in cap savings. Oh God. That's gross. If they, yeah, there's no way. There's no way anything happens with him if he's not designated post June 1st. So there's no chance. So yeah, Deebo's playing hardball. Deebo is trying to kind of nerf his value. And the 49ers, I think I don't know if that's a smart move by Deebo, to be honest with you. I know why he wants it. I know why he wants to be released. I know he wants to go pick where he's going to play next. I know he wants to be able to negotiate contracts and pit teams against each other so he can get the highest value for his next team. But that's not in the best interest of the San Francisco 49ers. What's in the best interest of them is keeping him for a post June 1st trade. And I don't think they're going to want to just outright release him because there's too much on the line. So, and I don't know if you guys know this. If the 49ers were to release Deebo, does that count against the comp formula? Ha ha. Okay. We've officially figured out what's going to happen with Deebo. The 49ers are not going to release Deebo because if they release Deebo, he doesn't qualify for the compensatory pick formula. That means the 49ers would get absolutely zero in return for releasing Deebo Samuel while taking on a $20 million cap hit. Um, a $20 million cap hit in 2026 and a $10 million dead cap hit in 2025. So we found our answer. We found our answer. It's we're trading you with the post June 1 designation for something of value, or you're going to the side field with Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's why now thinking about it, he probably hurt his case. He hurt his case because by announcing his plans, he hurt his value from the 49ers perspective. And the 49ers aren't going to what did John Lynch? Now, this is where I believe John Lynch. We aren't in the business of giving away players for free or getting rid of players for free or whatever he said. Oh, I think we figured it out. I think we figured it out. We figured out what the options are. All right. Good job, gang. We did it together. So, Deebo, come on, man. Come on, Deebo. I know what you want, man. I know you want to get released. That ain't happening, pal. We're not doing that. So it's man, brutal because he hurt his value. He hurt his value. Yes, yesterday he hurt his trade value. And that isn't going to incentivize the 49ers. Like, oh, yeah, we're just going to let you go. We're just going to take on this 2 years of increasing dead cap hit for absolutely nothing. Because if we outright release you, you do not qualify. We do not qualify for a compensatory pick from you. So I think one of the reasons why the 49ers kept Jimmy Garoppolo is because it's either we get something for you or you're going to play out your deal until you become an unrestricted free agent. And then when you go become an unrestricted free agent, we're going to recoup a compensatory pick for you. I think the 49ers got in the wash when it was all said and done a 4th round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. Hey, I mean, say what you want about the 49ers front office, but they're smart with how they handle this. It says they get a 4th round pick for Jimmy. Received the compensatory pass. Or is it a 3rd round pick? What did he get? So I see an article from WebZone saying that the 49ers were awarded a 3rd round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. No, it was a 4th round pick. It was a 4th round pick. So that's what we're up against. That's the leverage. That's how this is going to work. 49ers aren't going to release him, and that's what he wants. And if they keep him for the final year of his deal, he has to play, or I think he will be fine. Like he'll run into a bunch of fines. Yeah. I would have to say maybe ill-advised move by Deebo by announcing his trade. Because they're not going to release you, man. Hey, we talk about this all the time. We talk about this all the time this time of the year. Put your fan hats away. Put your fan hats away. This is business time. This is business time in the NFL, so we operate off different set of rules and circumstances. Put on your business caps. Put on your the hat that you're going to wear as you get ready to enter the off season, because it's business time. And business time means we're smoke chasing, we're reading between the lines, we're trying to identify the most realistic and probable outcomes. And I think we figured it out. The most probable and realistic outcome is, Deebo, you're going to be playing with the 49ers on the final year of your deal, or you're going to get traded. But you just hurt your trade value by announcing your trade. We're not going to release you. Those are your options. The OG tinfoil hat got holes in it. This is from 2021, people. The OG tinfoil hat, 2021. This is a relic. They should put this in a museum. I have not made another one. That is OG tinfoil hat right there. So, boy. No, it's not. It's not a conspiracy. But the point being is, the tinfoil hat sees through the BS, if that makes sense. That's the whole point. And the ideology of the tinfoil hat is, the tinfoil hat isn't distracted by the smoke, by the fluff. It cuts right through it. It cuts straight through the BS. That's why we call, it's tinfoil hat season. That's why we call ourselves smoke chasers. It's because we see through the BS. We see through the fluff. We see through all this stuff that can be distracting, and we might think it's one way when it's really another. Like, I got a graphic. Like, we are branded. We love the off season around here for this reason. It's exciting to me because fan perspective of the off season versus business perspective of the off season are two different things. They operate on different wavelengths. And so for me, I've always tried to connect the two. Is that, yes, fans, football on the field, absolutely, and we got to think through that lens, but we also have to think through the lens of general managers, head coaches, agents, and what that process is. And it is fundamentally different from how fans think. So it's very important that in the offseason we merge these two fields together so that we actually can project out and have a good focus on what is coming in the future. So that's why we chase smoke. That's why we got our tinfoil hat. We run into the smoke. We want to get to the bottom of it, and we want to understand what the most logical outcome is. It's really what it comes down to. Oh, I am so sorry I missed these super chats. Michael says we need to draft a right tackle to challenge McKivitz to start. Who do you like in the later rounds? I thought Anthony Belton, Earsery were two guys that stood out to me at the Senior Bowl in later rounds, and Miles Frazier stood out to me at the Senior Bowl for kind of mid-round tackles. But I don't disagree. I think the 49ers need to draft two offensive linemen in this class, and hopefully that's with the addition of a center. as well. Um, yeah, I'll have a mock draft here pretty soon. I'm gonna try to get one out this week because I haven't been able to do one since the Senior Bowl because we went straight into Super Bowl coverage. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely be doing a mock draft here pretty soon. And shout out to Matthew for just sending $5. Appreciate you, man. So hey man, I'm excited. I'm excited for this off season. I'm excited to see what happens with Deebo. I'm excited to see if he gets traded, to see if he doesn't get traded. Um, I'm excited to see what we do in free agency and what we do in the draft because this is a crucial year. This is so important for the 49ers to get it right. Um, it's a very, 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 very impactful offseason that will have big time ramifications. I think over this next block of years, probably the next 3 years are going to be greatly, greatly impacted um, by these next 3 years or by the moves made now will impact uh, the next 3 years. All right. Scatterboo. I like him. I don't know if he fits the potential needs based on his current value, which might be second, third. But I do like him a lot, and I would love him on the team. I just feel like we keep talking about, they got to shore up their offensive line and defensive line first, really, before anything else. What about going after Josh Sweat in free agency? Josh probably just elevated his earnings by a substantial amount with that performance in the Super Bowl. He could absolutely price himself out. And I think he's found that success running I think a stand-up outside linebacker role. So I don't know if it's a super smooth transition. Might be It'd be interesting, but he might be a little too expensive um for maybe what I would be hoping for. Debo and a first round pick for Garrett. I would be willing to do that. I would be willing to do that. I think Debo would be a nice piece to dangle in any type of potential trade of one of these elite guys. If you can go get an elite guy and you can just kind of throw Debo into that, I think that would be good. I don't think Debo has a no trade clause, so he doesn't. I don't think he really has an option, and I think that's why he's trying. I think that's why he wants a release, is because he doesn't want to go to a place like Cleveland. Um, that's why he wants to get released. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Um, but it's good to be home. A lot of crazy stuff with the Super Bowl going on and all the crazy news that we got. But I'll definitely be picking more up to speed, I think, tomorrow, on like kind of normal content that I typically would do. I know it's been kind of crazy with everything going on. Um, but I think tomorrow I'll be back in the saddle and we'll get after it. So appreciate everyone for tapping in. Did we hit our like goal of 150? Did we not? I'm pretty sure we hit that pretty early on. What are we at likes wise on this video? Where did we end up hitting that? We doubled it. Ooh. Hell yeah. Over 300? Shout out the SDS. Hell yeah. Let's go. Hey, you guys cooked. Oh, 305. You guys cooked. Ooh. Let's go. Shout out to SDS. Hey, I'm excited about this offseason. I feel so re-energized after going to the Senior Bowl, going to the Super Bowl, watching the Chiefs lose. I'm ready, man. I'm so ready. We have free agency. The 49ers have the opportunity to have a ton of cap space. We have this new variable with trading Deebo. We're going to have 10 draft picks with the 11th overall pick. I think they're going to be in the mix to trade for a big time defensive end. It's exciting, man. It's an exciting offseason. To me, it's the most exciting a 49ers offseason has been since 2021, and they went up and traded to get the third overall pick, which they selected Trey Lance. So it's been a long time. You know, I love the offseason. I love dabbling with this stuff, and it just hasn't been the same because they've been competitive and they've been playing deep into the playoffs and haven't had first round draft picks or haven't had a ton of money to spend in free agency. But we're gonna have a very eventful offseason. I can already see it. So super excited about it and excited to see. We were just talking about this. Yeah, there's only two options for Deebo. He gets traded or he stays on the side field like Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers are not outright releasing Deebo Samuel. That's not going to happen. So he's got two options, and he just hurt his value in trade. So be careful what you ask for, Deebo, because you might get the Jimmy Garoppolo treatment here if you tank your value any more than it already is, because it's already not high. And it's definitely not doing himself any favors. But we'll see. But I appreciate everyone for tapping in on this one. Damn, almost went 2 hours. All right. So if you haven't already, smash that like button. I think we got up to 318. Last I saw, the highest we got. We doubled our like goal. I love that. For sure. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tapping in. If you watch the whole way, absolutely grab some cookies on the way out. Appreciate y'all. And we'll be back tomorrow with more 49ers content. Appreciate you. We out. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.